Hey guys, welcome to the second part of the chapter, which is rather a poem we have now, The Lake Isle of Innisfree. Let's talk about the poet. William Butler Yeats was an English language Irish poet, dramatist, prose writer, and one of the foremost figures of the 20th century literature. Now, our poet Yeats, he is actually one of the famous writers of the 20th century. Not old, quite young too, considering the 21st century people we are in today. The theme of the poem is that the recurring theme of the poem is actually of nature versus human civilization. The poet believes that going to the lake isle of Innisfree can give him some peace and wants to leave the city. Now, being really frustrated and being in the constant routine of going to do human chores, the poet has decided that okay, I'll get some peace only in the lake isle. And that is what we are going to see in the poem. Let's just begin with the poem. I will rise and go now, and go to Einsfree, and a small cabin built there of clay and wattles made. 9 beams, row will I have there, a hive for the honeybee, and live alone in the bee loud clay. Then the poet is saying that okay, I will get up and I'll just move to Einsfree. There's a small cabin which is made of clay and wattles, and I'm going to stay there. And there are some beans which are being grown. There are rows. Then there are the yaches, and I would be also having a bee clam, that is honeybees, and I'll have a hive for the honey, and I'll just live there peacefully apart from the city life. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the evils of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnights all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evenings full of linnets' wings. Now, see, he's describing that okay, going far away from the city into the countryside near the lake will grant me peace. The poet thinks that he is dropping all the evils, all the worldly affairs of a human course, and he's going to move there where in the morning the cricket, it's more of grasshopper, it sings. And then in the midnight, it's all glimmer because the moon it shines on the lake. Then the lake also glistens, it shines, and then everything is so lighted. And in the noon, it's a purple glow. Evenings are full of linnet's wings. Now, linnets is a form of a bird, which will obviously be returning in the end of the day. I will arise and go now, for always night and day. I hear the lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore. While I stand on the roadway or on the pavement's grey, I hear it in deep heart's core. Now the poet says that okay, he'll just get up and he'll just go there forever. And he says that he can hear the water lapping with the low sounds of the shore. Now, staying there in the city and standing on a roadway or on the pavements which are grey here means that made of cement in the city, he still can hear very faintly the lapping sounds of the lake, of how the water is being rushing in it, and he hears it in his deep heart. Now, that was all in the poem. That is somewhat a poet is just giving a brief idea about how exactly he wanted to go to the lake, stay there for finding some inner peace because he thinks that he can't find it in the city. It's his own perspective of getting more close to nature. Now, let's get to know more of the key terms. Wattles are meaned as the twisted sticks. You can see it very well in the picture, which are used for making fences and walls. Glade is a clearing or it is more of an open space. Linnet is a small brown and grey bird with a short beak. You can see it there. That's the reason I mentioned that in the evening, all the linnets they would go home, they would go towards their nests. Let's get to know more of the questions now. What kind of place is Einsfree? Think about. First, the three things the poet wants to do when he goes back there. Second, what he hears and sees there and it affects on him. Third, what he hears in his heart's core even when he's far away from Einsfree. Starting with the first point, the three things which the poet wants to do is that first of all, he wants to go near the lakeside and he wants to build a cabin made of clay and wattles. Then he wants to have 9 rows of beans, that is, he wants to grow beans there. And thirdly, he wants to have the hive for the honeybees. Talking about the second part, what he hears, okay, he hears in the mornings the crickets whispering, and he sees the moon glisten at the night. He sees the afternoons to be purple and the evenings to be full of linnet wings. Talking about the third part, in his heart's core, he hears the sounds of the water gushing in the lake, even in fact that he is away in the city. Moving forward to the next question. By now, you may have concluded that Einsphere is a simple natural place, full of beauty and peace. How does the poet contrast it with where he now stands? One can easily answer this question by the fact that the poet, he is more of, okay, now there is only one line actually in the poem, if we need to understand it, that he contrasts the lake, that from the city, by the pavements he mentions and the color gray. Now for color gray, he symbolizes death and decay in the poem. So you can mention this in your answer. Moving forward to the next question. Do you think Einstein is only a place or a state of mind? Does the poet actually miss the pace of his boyhood days? Now, see, this is somewhat a question which requires your own personal opinion to be added in the answer. So, if I talk about my personal opinion and the analyzation of the poem which I have done, I'll say that no, Einstein is not a place. It's rather a state of mind which somewhat relates to the fact that the poet actually misses the place of his boyhood days. He misses the fact that there was a time when he used to be carefree. He didn't require to go for a job and earn so much and have all these tensions which he got in the adult. Moving forward to the next question. Look at the words the poet uses to describe what he sees and hears at Einstein. Be loud glade. Evening full of linnet wings, lake water lapping with low sounds. What pictures do these words create in your mind? So for Be Loud Glade, you can say, okay, a summer paradise, a small picnic spot where a lot of bees are roaming here and there. That can be utilized. Evenings full of linnet wings would somehow be that a peaceful evening where a lot of birds are returning home and it somewhat looks like a good landscape. Lake water lapping with low sounds would create a sensation of calmness and peace in a particular area where the rushing of water is not actually somewhat creating anxiety rather than peace. Moving forward, peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the wheels of the morning to where the cricket sings. What do these words mean to you? What comes dropping slow from the wheels of the morning? What does to where the cricket sings mean? Now, here there are three different questions which are being taken up from the paragraph and are being utilized here. So, these words mean a state of mind or the place how the poet is being describing to us. The second question, what comes dropping slow from the wheels in the morning? So, peace. As we can see that according to the poet, the sense and feeling of peace comes dropping slow down the wheels of the morning. And what does to where the cricket sings mean? That means that as soon as the morning begins, the crickets they start singing and rather they start chirping, creating their own voices, and that gives a sense of calmness and peace in that particular area. Guys, let's just quickly revise the last poem of this particular chapter and get over with it. So, in this poem, the poet wants to go to Einsfree and he says that he wants to live there alone. He wants to live a simple life in a cabin with not much hustle of the city, not wanting to go for a job and all. The poet describes the place as natural, growing more towards nature and coming slow in contrast to the fast-paced city routine he had. He describes the differences between the midnight, noon, and evening, how by the crickets chirping, by the sky getting purple, and by all the birds coming up in the sky. The poet feels that there is an urgency to go to Lake Isle so that he can have a sense of peace and calmness surrounding the lake. and he hears the lapping sound of water in the depth of his heart, contrasting to the roadways and the grey pavements of the city which he is currently in. See, that was all in this, and that's the quick revision we had. Thank you everyone for joining.